Hello, this is Meghnad and you're watching Sansad Watch, where we tell you what the leaders you elected are doing for you. Our main story tonight is about the government's latest attempt to get itself some monies. No, not that. Not that. Not that. Oof, guys, that's monies going to political parties anonymously, not the government. I'm talking about the grand announcement of the national monetization pipeline.
And asset monetization is based on the philosophy of creation of new assets through monetization. Therefore, the aim is to unlock the value of government investments and public money in infrastructure and take this country forward.
So, Niti Aayog and the Finance Ministry have come up with a plan to generate additional wealth from the efficient use of existing assets by monetizing them and without spending more taxpayer money on these assets. That was a complex sentence, I know. So, Mehena, let me break it down for you. The government has a lot of assets which were built over time using taxpayer money. These are things that are to be used by the public at large, like roads, railways, electricity, transmission networks, gas pipelines, airports, stadiums, and a lot more. Now, the government said that some of these assets are being underutilized, meaning babus are running it kafi ultra inefficiently. You might be wondering why, but then मेरा 2 बजे का lunch time है, तो मैं बाद में बताऊंगा, okay? बाद में आना, bye. Okay, so the government solution to get more paisa is to rent out assets to private companies for a few years, giving them the freedom to maintain these assets and then keep the profits that they earn from it. Basically, it's like a landlord giving out their unused flat. But it's actually a rundown, badly maintained flat. The landlord is asking potential tenants to come in by paying a giant one-time deposit amount, then spend their own money to renovate the flat and use it. Now, the tenant is free to rent it out to someone else and earn monies from a previously unused asset. Overall, it's a decent idea, but there are some questions. So today, we are going to try and answer 3 of these. Why is the government doing this? Which assets are going to be monetized? And will it work? First up, let's talk about the why. Why is the government doing this? Simply put, government needs paisa, and this is one way to get it. You see, Modi ji and his government are an ambitious lot. For the last 3 years, every Independence Day, the Prime Minister has announced that the government will spend more than 100 lakh crore on infrastructure. He said it again this year as well.
100 लाख करोड़ रुपया आधुनिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए लगाए जाएंगे. इसमें अहम भूमिका रहेगी नेशनल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पाइपलाइन प्रोजेक्ट की. इस पर 110 लाख करोड़ उससे भी ज्यादा खर्च किए जाएंगे. 100 लाख करोड़ से भी अधिक की योजना लाखों नौजवानों के लिए रोजगार के नए अवसर लेकर के आने वाली है.
Modi ji is like that friend who keeps making plans to go to Goa each year. Everyone says, हाँ करते हैं, full दिल चाहता है करेंगे उधर जाके. Then nobody shows up. The amount of 100 lakh crore rupees is truly astounding. Just to give you an idea, the GDP of our country is 135 lakh crore. The total government expenditure highlighted in the union budget this year is 35 lakh crore. This has been allocated across 55 ministries, by the way. So yeah, big plans for the future. On top of ambition, our government also has a lot of debt. In a response to a question, the government informed the parliament that it has a debt burden of 60% of the GDP. In the last year alone, our debt burden has increased by 19.5%. What this means is that the government is spending a lot more than it is earning. To meet the shortfall, it is borrowing money from the public at large and also foreign sources and paying interest on it. Very expensive. To make things worse, coronavirus happened. Our GDP contracted by 7.3% for the fiscal year. Job losses happened left, right, center. We saw a giant exodus of migrant citizens across the country, which was a pretty big sign of big trouble. So yeah, it's bad, and on top of it, the ambition to become the greatest country in the known universe. So the government needs money. This national monetization pipeline is one of the ways they want to get some moolah in. So what are the assets they are putting up for monetization? On August 23rd, the government announced that it has prepared a list across sectors, namely roads, ports, railways, mining, among other sectors. By leasing out some assets from the said sectors to private companies, the government aims to earn nearly 6 lakh crore over a span of 4 years. Out of the total 13 sectors, the majority of the assets to be monetized belong to roads and railways, which aim to raise more than half of the total 6 lakh crore amount. This money would be used to build fresh assets under the infrastructure pipeline that Adarniya Modi ji keeps announcing every year. You know what, now that I think of it, maybe, just maybe, Modi ji keeps going to Red Fort and saying, invest 100 lakh crore in the infrastructure every 15th August. For the past 3 years, hoping that someone would listen to him. The government machinery finally got it this year and was like, oh, humko karna hai? Oh, right. Ye lo, I see your infrastructure pipeline and I raise you a monetization pipeline. Your move, Modi ji. Anyway, even before this thing was announced, the monetization ki prakriya had already started, especially in aviation and ports. Over the past 2 years, Adani has rapidly taken control of 8 airports and 3 major ports, making it the largest port and airport infrastructure company. It is estimated that 1 in every 4 Indians passes through an Adani-run airport today. We already know where this is going. Monopoly. Yeah, that's the name of the game. And you know the funny thing, while airports seem to be an asset everyone wants their hands on, running an actual airline is a no-go zone. Just look at Air India. It was approved by the government for privatization in 2017. A few cold bids and a zillion negotiations later, there is still no deal in place. Which brings us to the final question. Just like Air India, will anyone want to buy these assets? And will this national monetization pipeline even work? So let's get this straight. This idea isn't new. Governments in the past have tried to hand off assets in one way or another to private players and raise money from it. And in every instance, there have been different kind of teething problems. For instance, you must have heard of this thing called the PPP model. It stands for Public-Private Partnership. In the UPA tenure, we saw many of these. A public-private partnership is an agreement which allows a direct collaboration between the government and a private investor to build, finance and operate an asset on a sharing basis. Private players actively participated in these partnerships by paying an upfront amount to the government, which was usually done by taking a loan. There were many instances where these partnerships failed and the government was left with a bunch of stressed loans haunting them. In 2016, the government decided to invite private companies to monetize toll highways. Investors could get toll collection rights for 30 years after making a one-time payment. The National Highway Authority of India, or NHAI, successfully completed 2 rounds of auctions since the program was launched, raising 14,700 crore rupees. But it failed to generate any interest in subsequent auctions. Eventually, NHAI had to drop this idea. Another instance is of railways. In the year 2019, a plan was made to allow private companies to operate trains on certain routes based on a revenue sharing arrangement with the government. The plan, which was expected to raise 70,000 crore rupees, had only 2 takers. Why? Because prospective bidders had concerns over various aspects like higher premium deciding the winning bidder, haulage charges, restrictions on routes, train timings, and the absence of a regulator. The bidding process is currently being reworked to make it more attractive. Speaking of attractiveness, an attempt was also made 5 years ago to let private companies redevelop and prettify railway stations. 123 stations were identified to be redeveloped through the PPP mode. Until last month, invitations for bidding were floated for only 14 stations. So you see, it's not as simple as it sounds. The idea is good though. Putting unutilized and underutilized assets to use is a legit plan. But it remains to be seen whether anyone wants to actually invest in these assets. Plus, there is also the worry that without proper regulation, 2 or 3 companies might buy up control for all of these and try to create monopolies, the result of which would be higher pricing for us, the citizens. And now it's time to know your Neta. We got a lot of comments for this segment, and the Neta we have picked this week is BJP Lok Sabha MP Aparajita Sarangi, who represents the Bhubaneswar constituency in Odisha. What makes Aparajita Sarangi an interesting MP is that she brings with her an elaborate experience as an administrator. Aparajita Sarangi was an IAS officer in the Odisha cadre batch of 1994. She claims that in her younger days, her close friend was once kidnapped and forcefully married off by some goons. She then met the district collector of her area, who helped them out. Inspired by this, she wanted to be a collector too. And she did. Aparajita grew up to serve as a collector in Khurda district during the 1999 super cyclone in Odisha. Apart from Khurda, she has also served as the collector in Koraput, Noapada and Badgar district of Odisha. She also held bureaucratic positions in the Ministry of Mass Education and has also served as the commissioner for the Bhubaneswar Municipal Corporation. At the age of 49, she applied for Voluntary Retirement Scheme, VRS, which was accepted by the Prime Minister's office. In 2018, she joined the Bharatiya Janata Party after meeting with Amit Shah right before the 2019 general elections. She directly contested the elections from Bhubaneswar constituency and was up against Arun Patnaik, another celebrated former police commissioner and IPS officer. She defeated him with 24,000 votes, and this marked Aparajita's dramatic entry into politics. As a legislator, her performance in parliament has been decent. She has a good attendance of 97%, way more than what I had in college. And she has participated in 19 debates. On the questions front, she has posed 104 of them to different ministries. Aparajita Sarangi was also nominated as the BJP spokesperson soon after her win. She frequents TV news channels and likewise does what BJP panelists seem to do best.
नहीं इसके बाद आ रहा हूं
हिंदी फिल्म में
जी बोलिए
हिंदी फिल्म में एक गाना है तुमको जो पसंद हो वही बात करेंगे तुम दिन को अगर रात कहो तो रात कहेंगे यह गीत कांग्रेस के द्वारा पाकिस्तान को समर्पित है और अगर देश में कांग्रेस जैसी राजनीतिक पार्टी हो तो दुश्मन का क्या काम
TV news debates, making able administrators behave like complete buffoons since forever. Sarangi has been embroiled in a few controversies as well. As a bureaucrat serving in the Ministry of Mass Education, she imposed an order that required female teachers in Odisha to wear a uniform. She obviously got some heavy backlash for this one. Very recently, she has been making news as a lawmaker who has zero respect for COVID protocols. I mean, the situation got so out of hand that people had started filing multiple complaints against her. Last year, she organized a full-blown birthday bash, pictures of which went viral. Before this, she was also seen assembling with a few fellow female BJP workers without adhering to any form of COVID protocol whatsoever. When pictures of the event became public, she was fined along with 20 other members she was out with. Right in the midst of June 2020, Aparajita also laid the foundation stone for a flyover, once again flouting COVID guidelines. That, dear viewers, was your Neta for this week. If you want me to profile any MP that you think should be profiled, leave it in the comments below. Only vanilla MPs please, no ministers. That's all I have for you this week. Remember, if you want to make Parliament great again, you need to watch it first. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Sansad Watch. Guys, this is a weekly show, but we have created a playlist of all the last episodes. You can go back and watch them again. They're still relevant, even if it's a weekly show. Please go ahead and do that and share these episodes with your friends, family, and people who you think should be informed about what our government is doing, which should be everyone, I guess. This show takes a lot of research, it takes a lot of effort. So please do consider subscribing to Newslaundry by going to newslaundry.com/subscription and pay to keep news free. If you want more stuff like this, if you want more ground reports, if you want more shows, then that's all you need to do is pay to keep news free. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.
The subscription model is something that keeps Newslaundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free, और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.